Dr. Sahab, Eid al-Adha is coming now. A lot of people are asking these questions, especially during the month of Eid al-Adha, during the time of Eid al-Adha, that why are you spending so much money, so much wealth on a single qurbani, on a single animal, where you can purchase an animal which costs you a lot less money, and then you can, with the remaining amount of wealth or remaining amount of money, you can go and help the needy ones. For example, you can go and purchase their home, new clothes, food, and more else. You can help them to wed their daughters. What does Islam say about this?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Nahmadu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is an objection sometimes we hear from people with some modern ideologies, that on Eid al-Adha, why are so many sacrifices being made, all right, and so much money is being spent on killing animals, slaughtering animals, while that money could have been used to help some needy, some poor, to get some poor person's daughter married, to get somebody, a homeless person, a home, to feed a hungry and stuff like that. For lots of welfare purposes, the wealth could be used, right? But rather than doing this, a whole lot of money, a whole lot of slaughtering is being done, and animals are being killed, which is a waste of money, kind of, na'uzubillah. The very first thing we must understand is slaughtering, or qurbani, or udhiyya in Arabic, is the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not what we are doing by our own self. Allah has commanded, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. In Surah Kawthar, Allah says that you pray, and one of the tafsir of this ayat, the Mufassirin says it's about Eid al-Adha, that fasalli, pray first for your Lord, then slaughter. And this is nahar is about slaughtering. Okay, so Allah has commanded in Quran that we slaughter animals on Eid al-Adha, and we know the history why it has been ordained on us. And in one of the hadiths, Rasulullah has mentioned, the close meaning is that on the day of Eid al-Adha, there is nothing more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the spilling of the blood of the animal on the ground when it's slaughtered. That is what is desired, right? So instead of actually going for it, we start to object on these things, that why are we wasting that money? This is not wasted, this is following the commandments of Allah Azza wa Jal. Imagine for a moment that you order your servant, you give him the money, and you order him to go to a market and buy a certain product for a certain brand. And your servant comes back to you and says, sir, that brand is very expensive. Why don't you buy a cheaper brand and spend the rest of the money on some poor person? How exactly are you going to feel about that servant? Right? You're gonna give a shut up call to that servant, and you're going to say, you will say, you must do what I'm telling you. It's not your job to think about what I should do and what I should not do. This is exactly what your emotions will be. Similarly, it's suggesting things like these. It's like objecting on na'uzubillah on Allah Azza wa Jal's order. Allah has ordered sacrifice. Who is anybody else to object on it? So this is a very common sense stuff that must be thought about, right? In one of the narrations in Tirmidhi Sharif, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala mentioned that Rasulullah Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam, close meaning is, Rasulullah Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived in Medina for 10 years, and every year he sacrificed animals. Right? In one of the narrations in Ibn Majah, Rasulullah Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, close meaning is, whoever has the ability to buy an animal for sacrifice, and yet he does not sacrifice an animal on Eid al-Adha, that person should not come even close to the place of our Salatul Eid. Should not come even close to that place. Such disgust Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam expressed for that person who can sacrifice but does not do it. All right. So that's one side of it, right? The order of Allah, it's an ibadat. It's not something that we choose to do ourselves. We are ordered by Allah to do it. We're ordered by Rasulullah to do it. So it's an ibadat. And in doing the ibadah, in following commandments of Allah, we should should look for the reasons why Allah has said so. This is not this is not our level. Okay, this is not our. It does not befit us to actually ask why Allah has ordered these things. If once I find out, then I'm gonna follow the commandments of Allah. This is not the way a slave of Allah or slave does it. But that being aside, I want to bring this in front of in front of our brothers and sisters, that is actually in slaughtering such large amounts of slaughtering all over the Muslim world. There's actually the poor and the needy who benefit the most in this sacrifice, the act of sacrifice. For example, the people who raise all these animals and cattle, these are usually the poor people. They're not industrialists who raise these things. Usually poor people raise them in their houses, in their farms, in villages, and in this occasion, they reap the rewards of raising all of them, and then they sell the animal for a high profit. And animals are sold at a much higher value on Eid al-Adha than on any other day in the year. So they earn a lot. They benefit a lot from this thing, right? The transport, big transports are needed to carry the animals from rural areas to urban areas and city areas, right? So the people who run those transports, these are poor people as well. They benefit from it. This is the season of their earning. People who sell fodder and food for these animals, those are poor people, right? So they open up shops everywhere in every nook and corner and streets and roundabouts, and they're selling the fodder and food for the cattle and sheep. People in Pakistan particularly, I'm not sure, I don't think other Western countries have this, but in Pakistan, people sell and they like to buy adornments for the animals. They like to decorate the animal, right? And so this is another business run totally by the poor people, and they earn a lot. They benefit from it. Then the butcher, the person you hire for slaughtering the animal, those are poor people. They earn from it. We distribute meat free of charge to people. Right? I personally am familiar with lots of people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed with a lot of money, and they sacrifice many animals in villages where people have not tasted the meat for the entire year. And I personally visited those areas and found out that people in those areas, they never have get the chance to taste meat the entire year. The only time they get to taste the meat is on Eid al-Adha. And so people slaughter a lot of animals in different countries and different places where people are needy, and they distribute the meat for them. The skin of the animal is also given away to poor people, and poor people those are the ones who benefit from it. They sell it and they earn money from there. Similarly, we hire people to look after the animals, okay, to take care of them, to guard them, and stuff like that. They are poor people as well. So by spending large amount of money on sacrifice, okay, lots of houses actually get food to eat. Lots of people without homes, homeless people get homes. Lots of hungry people are fed. Lots of people who have to vet their daughters get their daughters vet because they earn enough money to do it. So this is the way to do it. People, when they make this comment that why waste money, instead vet somebody's daughter, instead feed some hungry, instead give home to homeless, they are actually making a grave mistake. They are bringing the worldly needs in comparison with the ibadah, the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is not the right comparison. You cannot compare somebody's worldly needs with the ibadat that Allah has ordered. If you want to compare things, why don't you compare worldly needs with worldly needs? Why don't you say something like that? Why don't these people say something like that? That, oh brother, instead of spending hundreds of dollars and $600 and $800 for your latest mobile or iPhone, Why don't you buy a very cheap $50 or $80 mobile and spend the rest of the money on poor people? Instead of buying the latest car out of the showroom, why don't you buy a second-hand or used car, right? A cheap one that can serve you the purpose well, and spend the rest of the money feeding somebody or giving home to a homeless, right? Why do you have to buy branded dresses or branded shoes or clothes? Why don't you go and buy unbranded ones from Walmart or other cheap places and spend the rest of the money on poor people, right? On refugees and stuff. But why do you have to go and eat expensive food in expensive hotels? Why don't you just go and eat home cooked stuff, which is much cheaper, and eat simpler food like lentils or rice or simple bread, and then give the rest of the money to people who have never eaten anything, right? But they never would do it. Whenever they would go and pick stuff for them, they would pick the most expensive stuff, and they would never think about the poor people. But when it would come to the order of Allah, ibadat, then their mind would start cooking up these kind of excuses. This is all because of lack of relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No love of Allah, no relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So that kind of mind cooks up all of these kinds of excuses. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to understand and open up our minds.